mindset of that's their money and this is my money. Okay, for this next segment here, we're going to be talking about joint bank accounts. And before we get started on this, I want to make some clarifying comments first before getting started, because I think a lot of times people, they jump into this and they're bringing their own situations. And there are some times where I agree that in that particular situation, you would not want a joint bank account or things like that. So I'm talking specifically about relationships that are long-term. These are not short-term relationships. These are not relationships where you're just getting to know somebody and those sorts of things. These are long-term. So essentially I'm talking about marriages here, talking about people who are committed in the long haul here. Because to be honest with you, you really shouldn't be combining your finances with somebody that you really don't know. In my personal opinion, you shouldn't be combining your living space or having children with or anything like that with people that you do not fully know and want to be in a long-term relationship with, right? I think that's getting the cart before the horse. So if you are in a committed relationship, meaning that you are living together, you're having kids together, you are sharing your stuff together, and all these other things, then you need to also take the step of combining your finances as well. And we're going to go through and talk about those things right now. So the first reason why you want to combine your finances, meaning you have a bank account with the person that you're committed long term, is because of teamwork. And I'm going to be using probably some sports analogies here and stuff like that, so bear with me on that. But in order to get further and accomplish a goal, you need to work as a team. So you're not going to get farther or accomplish as many things if you have two separate bank accounts. Think of some of the greatest teams on paper that have been out there. There have been some fantastic football teams, baseball teams, basketball teams that on paper, they have all the talent in the world, and yet they don't achieve the greatest goal, which is winning that championship at the end of the season. And the question is, why is that? Why is it that a team that on paper is super talented and yet loses to teams that are on paper less talented than them? And I had a short about joint bank accounts where I mentioned that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And that's the reason why fantastically super talented teams can lose to lesser talented teams, because the lesser talented team has subjected itself to the whole, right? They're not about themselves, they're about the team. And so because of their collective abilities being combined together as a team, they're able to accomplish more than a team that is just a bunch of individuals trying to operate together. I mean, think about that. If you're on a football team, this usually happens in the NFL, but if you're on a football team, there's a lot of times where there's receivers or running backs, they're out for themselves. They want to get 100 yards receiving or 100 yards running, or the quarterback's out for himself. He wants to make sure his stat line looks good, whether it's a win or a loss. If you're out for yourself, you're not going to win the Super Bowl. You know, considered one of the greatest quarterbacks ever, Tom Brady, he won a lot of Super Bowls, but it's also because it wasn't just about him. He knew it was a team sport, so he would not take as much money as he possibly could. He would, in a way, take a pay cut, if you want to think of it like that, in order to make sure that other talented individuals could be acquired and put onto his team so that they could win a Super Bowl, because to him, winning the ultimate prize was more important than individual accolades. So, enough with the sports analogies. Let's get back to personal finance here. So, in a personal finance situation, if you are with a partner and you are operating as two individuals that just happen to live together, then you're not going to get as far as you could if the two of you are putting your money together and really talking through what you want to accomplish together. And that's what my wife and I are trying to do. We have been operating with a joint bank account since the very beginning, since we got married. And that has helped us get a lot of things done. You notice we're both fairly young, and in our generations, we're supposed to be on the internet complaining about the economic situations and how we can never get ahead in life. That's what we're supposed to be doing. But instead, we're taking control of what we can control, working together as a team, and we, on paper, are a lot further ahead than many of our fellow generation members, young people that are out there. So that's because we are putting the team above our own individual desires and wants. So the next reason why a joint bank account is helpful besides teamwork is it's also an accountability measure too. If you have two separate accounts, then you are relying fully on the face value communication that your partner gives you, which may not be 100% true. They could have their own personal vices that they're spending money on that you are completely unaware of. This is how this is an extreme example, okay? I'm going to leave that right now. This is an extreme example. But this is how a person can be unfaithful, hiring prostitutes, going on vacations or things, then spending money on business vacations and stuff like that they shouldn't be spending money on, and their partner not having any clue whatsoever that those things are happening. Now, of course, there's other deeper things going on besides money problems in that situation, but the opportunity to do those things would be a whole lot less if there was accountability in the relationship when it comes to finances. And so having a combined account, you can't really do those sorts of things because all the money is available and seen, and both partners are able to see what's going on. Now, of course, less extreme examples could be that you have a hobby that you're spending a ridiculous amount of money on every single month, and your partner cannot call you out on it because, first of all, they may not know how much money you're spending on your hobby. And second of all, when you have separate accounts, there's this idea, this mindset of that's their money and this is my money. So if you were to call out your partner and say, hey, I think you're spending a little too much money on this hobby, shouldn't you be dialing it back a bit and trying to accomplish bigger goals than something that's going to only temporarily satisfy you? Because that's really what materialism is, right? It's a temporary satisfaction. You'll be satisfied for a day or a week, potentially a month, and then you'll be right back to wanting to spend more money on those sorts of things. Your partner cannot call you out on it because as soon as they say something, what are you going to say in return? You're going to say, well, it's my money and I can spend it however I feel. What can they say to that? Nothing. So you would be spending money unwisely and there's no one holding you accountable for it because you're unaccountable to anybody. You have your own account and you can spend it however you feel. And your partner has no say whatsoever of it. But when you have a joint account, there is no your money, my money. It's our money. All money that is earned is put into the same pot. And it all gets mixed together. And there's no trying to sort out whose money is whose. Instead, it's everybody's money. It's all of our money. The two of us, I should say, our money. And so therefore, we need to hold each other accountable with our money so that we can succeed together as a team. Because let's go ahead and give some examples of this. Let's say we decide, we need a new car. Well, first of all, because our money is separate, who owns the car? Is it your car or is it my car? And if it happens to be our car, but you're going to use it more than I am I going to be incentivized to put money toward buying a car that I'm not going to use that much? No, I'm going to have low motivation to save for that, even though it benefits both of us. I'm not going to look at it that way because it's essentially a zero-sum game, right? I'm losing by giving money towards something that I'm not going to use as much. So essentially, I am wasting money. So you get into these weird situations when you have your accounts separated where what should be benefiting the family is no longer benefiting the family because you're not looking at it that way. You're looking at it as I'm spending my money on a vehicle that they should be spending money on because they're going to be the one using it more. Why would I want to do that? And then when you have budget talks with your partner and your partner says, oh, I can only really afford to put $100 a month toward that new vehicle, and you're taking that on face value without realizing that the reason why they can only afford $100 a month is because they're spending $300 a month on their hobby, and they're not willing to cut back on that in order to benefit the family, you can't call them out on it because there's no accountability. You don't have perfect information of what they're doing with their money, and even if you did, you can't say anything about it because it's their money, right? But again, like I said, joint bank account removes that mindset. It removes that barrier of what could potentially have hidden information. And this is why, again, joint bank accounts are great if you are in a long-term relationship. The last point that I have here is communication. I had a short, like I had alluded to earlier, that was talking about joint bank accounts, and there was a person on there that mentioned that, oh, well, you could just communicate. And as I've alluded to in the previous points, the communication in a separate bank account relationship is not perfect communication. Your partner could hide, white lie, just kind of let certain things slip that you will never know about because you don't have perfect communication. By having a joint account, you have perfect communication, which we know a relationship thrives on communication. I mean, think about this. If you have perfect knowledge of all the finances in your relationship, in your household, then you can more freely communicate with your partner on what business or financial decisions that you could make together to better benefit the family. You can have those conversations. Why? Because the communication is perfectly flowing. It's perfect communication. All information is available to both parties. That's not something that's available to you if you have separate accounts. You're hiding things, or you could potentially hide things from your partner and they would never know because, again, they don't have perfect information. So by having perfect information, which then gives much more perfect communication, your relationship is actually going to get stronger. You're going to have a stronger relationship with your partner because that communication is there. Like I said earlier, relationships thrive on communication, and they thrive on more perfect communication, not half communication or white lies or partial things like leaving things out. That actually hinders relationships. It doesn't benefit relationships at all. Which leaves me to my final thing. I'm going to read a quote actually from a group called NPR, which is a news agency, and they had an article about joint bank accounts, and I thought this particular quote was really good. So I'm going to leave this segment with this final word from NPR here. And here's what it says. One large-scale study from 2023 found that couples who put all their money into one pot, so joint bank account, tended to be happier. Not only that, but they stayed together longer than those who kept some or all of their money separate. All right, so I leave you with that.